Hello world, welcome back to the PG.biz podcast. As ever, I am your host, and joining me, as always, is the insightful, incisive and inquisitive Peggy and Salz. Good morning, Peggy. How are you?
Good morning, Brian. You are in top form. You have alliteration today, I see.
I have been well caffeinated, Peggy.
There you go. And slightly, let's just say a different turn. You've got a different studio. You want to share that with us? Is this your new look?
This is the look that says I was woken up at 6 a.m. by a Labrador that had a pressing need, and until I switched my camera on, I hadn't actually looked in the mirror.
I was actually more into the background look. It's like a little bit of a regal look, because I think you're somewhere in the Highlands. Probably a really cool B&B.
Well, this is the summer castle. There are so many castles in Scotland, they give them out to all and sundry. So this is the summer one. No, actually, I'm in the centre of Edinburgh, within spitting distance of the actual castle. We're gearing up, of course, for the Edinburgh Festival, the world's largest arts festival, which is going to kick off in just over a week. And that's where the population of the city doubles. So I'm going to be based here, hopefully, for the duration, just to make sure that we're live at the heart of it all.
So you are in the middle of this amazing art scene, and we're touching down in the world of casual games this week, because we're looking at a breakout success and strategy that has allowed an app to reach amazing heights. The company is Tactile, probably best known for making Story Match 3 games. The biggest title, you might have heard of it, Lily's Garden, right? Generated $517 million worldwide in lifetime player spending across App Store and Google Play, according to data.ai, which will be our guest at some point soon, Brian. And
I'm looking forward to it already, Peggy.
Yeah. And the lifetime spend of that magnitude requires, of course, a great game, effective UA. And we welcome Plamen Stefanov. He started with Tactile right after getting his bachelor's degree in 2021. So he's been there not for a long time, but has had milestone accomplishments. That's why he's called out also as Liftoff Mobile Hero for exactly this, his prowess in UA. And when he isn't working magic on the job in UA, he spends his time with his free roaming pet rabbit. So it fits the bill, Brian, and we welcome him. Welcome. Great to have you, Plamen.
It's good to be here, guys.
Thank you so much. Before we start, we have two very important questions, Plamen. First of all, what's your rabbit's name?
His name is Andy.
Andy the rabbit. Perfect.
Okay.
That fits in. Love it. Every rabbit should have a sensible name like Andy rather than Nibbles. And the second, equally important question is, tactile or tactile?
It's
Where do you
Tactile.
land in the company? Tactile. Excellent. We like you. You can stay.
Yeah, wonderful.
So, Plamen, you're a UA, user acquisition manager, but that means a lot of things now, and far more than just acquiring users. You have to meet targets. So, can you give us an idea of your daily job, the sort of tasks that you do, the targets that you have to try and meet as part of the Tactile team?
My daily routine is pretty much going like 8:30, and then first thing in the morning, refreshing all my dashboards, because I have dashboards for each partner I work with, and then we need to refresh them in order to get the most recent data. So that will be the first thing I do in the morning when I go to work. And then it's pretty much more or less the usual every day, which is checking performance. Usually how I do is I have focus day for each partner, just so I can check all the metrics and don't miss anything. And then depending on the day, I also check creatives, refresh creatives. And then in terms of optimization, I would say we optimize towards day 7 ROAS. That's our go-to. Why we chose day 7 is because when our data science team comes up with targets, then we evaluated that if we achieve a certain day 7 ROAS, then on depending on the game, we will achieve break even.
That makes a great deal of sense because obviously the whole notion of user acquisition continues to change, and the challenges that you face are growing and changing. So tell us a little bit about your background. Peggy mentioned that you left university and started at Tactile, but that's not always a straightforward path. So what were you studying, and can you give us some of the sort of the areas where you think it helps you to be a UA manager, and a good UA manager at that?
Yeah, well, I studied more of like a B2B marketing for physical products, not really advertising related, but then because I studied in Denmark, originally I'm from Bulgaria, one of the semesters here, it's mandatory to have internship. And that's where I actually fall in love with advertising, because during my internship, I work with Google search ads and Facebook ads. So from that point, I knew that I'm not interested in the B2B stuff. I want to do digital marketing.
Have you always been interested in games? Was games kind of a career path, or was this just too good an opportunity to pass up?
No, actually, in high school, I was addicted to World of Warcraft, played a lot of that. And I always from that time, I imagined myself working in a company that makes games. I didn't really imagine doing user acquisition because I didn't know it existed as a position. I was more dreaming about playing the game, or like a QA maybe. Yeah, but I would say it was my dream to work in a company that makes games.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to the games industry, and how have you been enjoying it so far?
Oh, it's wonderful. Every day is I feel like a dream come true, to be honest. I don't regret for a moment making that jump.
So part of the dream, and I wouldn't say it's the opposite, I wouldn't say it's a nightmare, but it certainly is the challenge. It's that constant optimizing of campaigns because, of course, performance is a moving target. Now, you are optimizing to day 7 ROAS, but you're also moving more to retention, I understood when we were talking also in prep. And actually, all UA managers are moving at some level to lifecycle marketing and looking, okay, day 7, I get it, optimize to that. That's your break even point, but you're a breakout success. So it must be more than that.
I mean, for sure, as you mentioned, attention is also important because if you have retention is correlated to ROAS pretty much, because retention points to user being interested in the product. And then if they are interested in the product, then that will result in earning money from that product. So retention for sure, it is very important. And especially if launching a new game, for example, then that will be your main metric to optimize towards, because at first you are not sure if the game will monetize well. So retention is the metric you kind of need to aim for in order to make sure that later on users will be engaged.
UA is a science informed by data, but it's also, according to many people, something of a black art. So it's not quite as cut and dried as follow the numbers, do what the data tells you. So what is your approach to this? Is it hard and fast, look at the numbers, or is there room for kind of creativity and innovation?
Of course, there is room for creativity because that will be related to the ads that we use. We do collaborate with our creative team, so we do give them suggestions and ideas. So maybe what we see works based on our campaigns or based on competitor campaigns, because there are different third partner tools that we can use to check those. So I would say the room for creativity is understanding why your ads work. And that's something you can communicate to the creative team, and then they can iterate on those suggestions.
So based on that, do you have a preferred approach, or do you have something you can talk to the marketers in our audience? What advice would you give them if they're facing the same kind of challenges? Once you know the game's out there, it's maybe a success. Can you pass on any expert hints or tips?
Just do a lot of creative testing, and don't do it with one partner. Do it with multiple partners, because every model has its own understanding. And then we also have different networks are targeting different user segments and different placements. So again, best tip will be test with multiple partners, and then test a lot of videos.
See, that chimes with some of the amazing guests we've had in the past on the podcast, where anyone involved in UA, it all seems to come back to test often, test across a whole range of creatives, of partners and audiences, and don't be afraid to test more and more and more.
And one question I have for you, Plamen, is you talk about the partners, and I hear two different things actually in the industry. I hear try new channels, try new partners, and then I hear people say, no, we're at a time where you should stick with, 5 or less, the usual suspects, and no risk. Which camp do you fall into?
Maybe like last year, if you ask, then I would say focus on what you know it works. But now we are more of exploring, if I can say it like this. So I would say, testing new partners is always good, but then you also have to have like the 5s that are doing a good job, so you can have like an experimental budget, if we refer to it as.
So it's a little bit more experimental now. And the interesting thing about Tactile is it's not just successful because of UA, it's also successful because of the story, right? It's a story that the audiences love because it's mostly made up of women like myself who love realism in stories. I mean, you have love, you have divorce, you have diversity, you have it all. Now, a creative and a game for that matter wins when the audiences love it. Now, you've nailed that story. What can you share about what women want in the creatives and what resonates with them?
From what I've seen, our target audience prefer sad emotions or not positive emotions. That's what I've seen. So they do like a lot of sadness, sorrow, pain, maybe even. It seems like they're not that engaged with positive emotions like smiling, happiness, having a good time. They prefer, the main character suffering.
Oh my, what does it make us sound like? Melodrama.
Okay, so I mean, in my opinion, it's more like if you see only that the character is happy, then you are like, yes, that's good. But then if you see the sad emotions, then the woman will feel like, yeah, I have to help that character. That's why they're more engaged. That's what I think, at least.
See, I think that might be quite universal, because if you look at just some of the other games out there, and I'm not going to name names, but some of the match 3 titles that are advertised really heavily, it's always somebody playing the game very, very poorly, almost infuriatingly badly, so that you go, no, I have to jump, I can do better than that. So it's kind of encouraging you. So I think that character's sad, I can help, I know what to do. I think speaks to quite a broad audience, but obviously the particular demographic for your game, I think, that's a strong approach.
That says a lot, actually, if you think about it, because it says that, because we see so much that we have to have a positive creative. I just read a report recently that positivity reigns supreme, but this is, no, have a creative that shows you are needed to help, that you are important, that you're going to make a difference here, and that actually makes a difference in the numbers, in the conversion, in the funnel. Is that what you're seeing, Plamen?
Yes, that's what we're seeing. And every time we test it, that's the results. We are always open to testing new stuff. And of course, we as a company, we would prefer focusing on the happiness and smiles and joy instead of the depressing stuff. But at the end of the day, numbers is what matters most, because we do need to have profit.
I kind of want to stay on that topic for a second, because in terms of the formats that you use, we know that video is effective, and as you've just covered, it's like looking at the sort of the characters who need help, making the player feel needed, is clearly effective. But what else do you do to kind of connect with your players? And again, it's a majority female audience. Have you found any other sort of ways of connecting with them outside? Just make it sad and people will hop right along.
Well, we tried many stuff, like banners work sometime. Of course, inventory is not that big for banners, so they don't scale. So we are primarily video, And also the reason for that, not only the inventory size, which was the obvious one, but then we are very like a story-driven game. So with videos, we can share our story, and we can just because it's like a regular girl, and then she's facing some real life issues that everyone could face. That's why with videos we have the ability to share the story of that character. So that way, kind of users can get attached to her. For example, then with banners or static images, then you can already share a story with them, or with that formats. That's why for us, video is the best performing.
Are there any other innovations or trends that are on your radar to kind of maintain that position at the top of the mind, and other ways to attract other player types?
It seems like it's a big trend in our field, is including mini games that complement the main game. So that's something we also started testing a long time ago. Last year, maybe it was. It took us a while to find out the winning concept, or the concept that actually engages users more than before. Because sometimes it actually has negative effect. That if your target audience does not like the new type of games inside your main game. So I would say that's one way to really start improving the engagement of users.
And in terms of mini games, can you give us any example of the type of game and how you're implementing it and experimenting and indeed testing with them?
Yes. So first of all, how we start is if we see a concept of mini game works good during creative testing. So that's the first step, implementing that mini game into a creative and testing that. And then if we see that new users are actually engaged with that video ad, then we can share that feedback with the product team, and then they can start working on how to test that in the actual game. That will be our way of implementing. So if, of course, it comes from us when we do competitive analysis, for example, then we get an idea. We see someone else is doing something that might work. Then we share that feedback with the creative team, and then they can put that gameplay inside a video. And then it's up to us, the UA team, to test that concept. And if we see some concept showing promising results, then we can share that with the product team. So it is like a long process.
I guess so. Yeah, comparatively, that makes sense. But also, you seem to be getting quite a virtuous circle. So if the mini game works, you can take that and turn it into video, and so you get multiple bites of the cherry, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. But for us, usually it's we also test the new teams for the mini games, or new levels for mini games with videos first, because that's the easiest to produce and kind of the cheapest to test. Introducing it in the product is pretty much the last step in the funnel.
So everything feeds into everything else, and it's an iterative process.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
So Plamen, you're very firmly user acquisition. You are UA, not product. But what we're finding in a lot of the top studios that the teams work together quite closely to come up with good games and features, and then how you get it out in front of the audience. How does this work at Tactile?
Pretty much the same. We do have scheduled meetings with the product team where we share our UA experiments or something, if we're testing, or how things are going in general. And then the product team will share if they did some tests in the game and the results of those. So pretty much we share, we communicate all the time. Sometimes we even complement each other. So if they are planning to test some new feature for new users, then we might start a campaign just to bring more users, to increase the data size. So I would say it's the same with everyone else, like with everyone else.
How do the testing and results work in terms of what flies in the mini game? Are you giving the product team feedback? Are they kind of coming in with their own ideas in terms of testing results? How does the whole cycle work?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much first we test the concept in a creative, then they implement the exact same mini game concept in the game. already with the same team and stuff, and then test it to a smaller size, and then they will come back to us and saying, okay, we tested with this amount of users, then they perform plus minus some percentage compared to the control. And the control is obviously the users that do not receive the test game, the test mini game. So that's our usual process. That's what we discuss when we meet.
And that's what you followed then for what is the name of the mini game again? I'm sorry. Was it pull to pin? Am I correct? Or
Yes.
okay, so you followed it for that. Is that what you followed? Is that the blueprint?
That's pretty much the case. So we saw it was working well for competitors. Then we uploaded some videos. First, we tested, of course. We tested some videos containing that type of mini game. Then uploaded to actual campaigns. Everything scaled immediately from day one. So that was our pretty much green light to test that in the product. So they test. They saw positive impact. Could be retention, could be conversions, could be many different metrics, but they saw overall positive impact. So that's why they released it to most users.
Well, you give a lot of great advice, and that's what you've also done in a recent blog. And we'll give that also in the show notes where people can go, our audience can go and read it. And you've gone through like the metrics. It's almost like a glossary. These are all the metrics you need to know to optimize marketing casual games. But looking at what you know games marketers do, what do you think they either do well or are possibly even missing on that list of metrics and where they need to improve or up their game?
For me, it's always about digging deeper and deeper into the metrics, just because every metric, that metrics is pretty much influenced by some other metrics. And then you have to dig deep into the funnel of like the metrics. And then, I mean, at some point you end up reaching the ceiling, so you cannot go deeper, but then you should have a pretty good hypothesis on what to test in order to improve that. That's pretty much my approach, like always dig deeper into the metrics.
When I hear this, Brian, I'm just thinking it's kind of a good thing maybe that AI is coming into all of this, because if I have to look at everything all the time and then go deeply into everything all the time, that just sounds massive. That sounds like a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, there's a lot of data coming out of even the simplest mobile games, Peggy. So either, we're working large teams, or maybe there is a role where technology can simplify things. So, Plamen, do you guys have an eye on the AI, or are you already making plans on how you could potentially use this to help get that sort of insight and drill even deeper?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like everyone else, we are looking into that. From a UA perspective, I can say that it will not take our jobs, because we also do a lot of, I can say, like relationship management, just because we need to speak with partners and understand how they see things on their end. So that's something AI cannot take away from us. Like the human to human relation, that's something AI cannot yet do, at least. But for the metrics and stuff, I do agree. You can do some cool stuff, and the AI can check that for you and in a way inform you if a change is happening. But at the end of the day, it will also be hard to take the decision, because sometimes it's not just black and white. Sometimes it could be something else. Like even if metrics are like dropping or increasing, then you might know something else that will make you leave them or not do any adjustment, which I guess the AI might not be able to do. I mean, there's always a human element to our job.
It's efficiencies in the process rather than decision making.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how I would summarize it.
Okay.
And also interesting, Brian, you talked about partner management. I don't think we've had many guests talk about how that's part of their job as well. So that's just an interesting aspect, that CRM and partner management are part of UA. So yes, there is a lot more than just the numbers.
I would say that's my top 3 tips for someone who wants to start UA. It's learn how to communicate well. Just because it's very important to know how to speak with account managers. I know that not all companies, the UA managers speak with account managers. It could be like growth managers or business developers that do so. But for our company, because we are a smaller team, it's up to us.
Just giving me an idea, actually. Someday a show, very soon, Brian. Exactly that. How indies, how small companies can talk to their partners, get the best deals, that sort of thing.
Hey, communication is everything, Peggy. That's why we're here. You and I both know at our own cost that there are a lot of people out there who are not necessarily comfortable with communicating, let alone communicating well. So, yeah, maybe that's a sort of a skill set that we can open up and bring in. So, Plamen, we're running out of time, but we're going to have to kind of bring things to a screeching halt. So, before we do, we have a couple of questions that we ask all of our guests, and we'll give you a second or two to think about it. The first one is, what are you playing right now, games-wise, and what's kind of, obsessing you on whatever format, whatever platform you have? And then the second and more important one is, what's your favourite game of all time? So, nothing trivial.
It's CSGO, where I play most for the past weeks, but then on my phone, I play our new game, because for me, the mechanics are incredibly well done. So I played this one. It's called Makeover Match. And then the other game I played, it's called Match Masters, I think. But it is a match 3 game, but multiplayer match 3 game. So you do compete with other people. And I have like a competitive nature, so I like competing with others. That's why I kind of like this game.
You mentioned World of Warcraft, so that's pretty much all competitive PvP. So I hear you.
That would be it. Those 3 games are my go-to the past couple of weeks.
And of all time?
Okay, that's something I don't have. Maybe I'll say World of Warcraft just because I was a kid and then that was like huge to me. Nowadays, it's not. I don't really feel that close connection to games as I used to.
Hey, you grow up, you get a job, all of a sudden you discover that there are other things you can do on a laptop, like, work, earn a living. But who knows? We may come the full circle, and play to earn will be a real thing, and you can go back into World of Warcraft and make a new career there.
I'm just going to thank you, Plamen, so much for coming, sharing. And I learned a lot also about now effective UA, but also sort of emotional UA. That's a great lesson to take away as well, that creatives can be very, very human at the core.
Yeah, well, I'm glad it was interesting too, because I had a great time. It was my first, so I hope I do that again sometime in the future.
Fantastic. Well, for your first time, I think you performed fantastically well. Really confident, really interesting throughout. So we'd be very glad to get you back on at some point in the near future and find out more about how things are going at Tactile and all of the lessons that you're learning in the world of UA.
That would be lovely.
This show is all about how to do your job better, how to make an amazing game, how to market it, and you have a say. So if you have a story or know someone we need to shine a light on, then we would love to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. We want to reflect the reality of the mobile games market in all its wonderful complexity and strangeness. So if you have any suggestions for us, if you have any feedback for us, you can always get in touch. You can email us at podcast@pocketgamer.biz. You can find us on Twitter @PGBiz, and you can reach out to us through the pocketgamer.biz website. If you're interested in listening to all of our podcasts, you can find them at pocketgamer.biz/podcast, and we would love to hear your thoughts on future shows.
And we've got you covered on all the major platforms, so subscribe to the audio podcast, as Brian said. Look for us on YouTube. If you want to read it, hey, you can do that too, because we have a companion post for you as well on the pocketgamer.biz website.
Tune in again for the next edition of the pocketgamer.biz podcast, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future. Until then, I'm Brian Baglow.
I'm Peggy Salz, and that's a wrap until next week.